Security Now Illustrated by AskMisterWizard.com, illustrating concepts, mechanisms, and algorithms from the amazing Security Now podcast by Steve Gibson and Leo LaPorte. This is episode 9, Rootkits, segment A. To set the scene for Steve's discussion of rootkits, let this image represent a modern, windowed operating system of the type used by most people in their desktop and laptop computers. Modern operating systems can best be understood when we think of their component parts as a system of logical layers through which commands and information must flow between the users and the hardware. At the end of this logical chain, it's always the hardware down at the bottom of this stack that must actually push the electrons around and do all of the real work. But the user, up at the top of this stack, is in charge. The user decides what is to be done through the available tools, and his primary arsenal of tools is determined by his selection of one or more appropriate user programs. Between the user and the hardware, each layer receives and manipulates commands from above and delivers the results of those processed commands to the next layer below. Layer by layer, the logic proceeds until the command is completed by the required hardware. If completion of a command results in any information for the user, that information must flow back up through all of the layers, from the electrons in the hardware to the user. In this case, when delivering information to the user, each layer of the operating system receives and manipulates information from below and then delivers the results to the next layer above. Most people know little about the internal organization of the operating systems and software upon which they rely to get their work done. In today's modern, computerized world, those who do understand these things enjoy a tremendous advantage over those who do not. And here's the dirty little secret. The bad guys do understand these things. The good news is that it's not difficult to gain an overall understanding of the big picture, and that understanding will help to clarify every use of the computer thereafter. Once this understanding has been gained, everything you do will make more sense, and you'll be far less likely to make serious mistakes or to be seriously fooled by malware or malicious interlopers. If you're a beginner at this, may we recommend that you pause to view our video entitled The Genesis of the Operating System? That clip brings a lighthearted overview of operating system components into sharp focus with a hint of fun by focusing on history and software's dawn of creation. Let's commence now with a sweeping overview. From bottom to top, each of these layers becomes increasingly less detailed and increasingly more intelligent. Deep down at the bottom, the hardware deals exclusively with minute details. It is, after all, just pushing around microscopic clumps of electrons. At this level, it's all about speed and detail. Make sure the right clump of electrons is pushed into the right pocket as quickly as possible. The device driver layer is similar. Its job is to execute very simple commands very quickly with perfect attention to tiny details, but with no concept of why or what may come next. At the opposite end of this spectrum, the user is thinking at a very high level, evaluating the purpose and impact of operations and the way they affect lives and emotions and prosperity and human relationships. The user applications cannot operate at those exclusively human levels, but nowadays, user applications are expected to come as close as possible, presenting and processing information in human-readable terms and summarizing it into broad concepts, eliminating the minute details as necessary for human impact and consumption. The layers in between, the operating system, vary by degree as they trade detail at the bottom for intelligence at the top. Thus, in order to get the computer's hardware to perform any task, it's as if the user were reaching down through the user program into and through the system calls, into and through one of the system services, into and through a device driver, and then into the hardware mechanisms and electrons. The boundary between each of these layers is well defined. Even a proprietary operating system like Microsoft's Windows must publish details of these layers to those that write and support the individual components. And since it is commonplace in the software business to subcontract component development and to encourage widespread use and support, those published details tend, eventually, to get wide circulation. A simple Google search can generally reveal every detail of the interface between software modules. Publication of those boundary details allows software developers considerable freedom to do their own thing between the boundaries, and eliminates the needs for others to understand or even care about those internal details. As long as a component functions as advertised between the published boundaries, few people pay attention to the details of how the logic works deep inside. As a result, we have another dirty little secret. Nobody really understands all of the logic of any modern operating system. Even the experts compartmentalize the overall organization, trusting that each module does its defined job somehow. And this is a good thing, most of the time. It is the foundation of the modern software industry and its associated economics. But this situation can be abused, and that's what the evil hackers are doing. Think about it. Because these layers are well defined, they're easy to locate, and it's not difficult for trusted software to intercept the traffic between layers. Unfortunately, experience has shown that the necessary trust is gained far too often when authorized users are tricked into executing malware. Once intercepted, that traffic can be filtered or manipulated. And that sets the scene for the deepest parts of Steve's amazing dialogue on rootkits. Here we go.
We've used the term, we've sort of bumped into them tangentially, and I thought we ought to just, take some time and really explain what that is, because it's no longer just a theoretical problem, it's really becoming something that end users need to be aware of. The term root is the original term used for the maximum privileged account on a Unix machine. Unix, of course, beat Windows to the internet by, a decade or so. It was the foundation of the internet. And so when hackers wanted to get into and compromise a Unix machine, because Unix administrators are typically very savvy, they're not mom and dad. They knew what was going on. They couldn't just install files and run processes because they would be spotted immediately. So they realized they had to go stealth. So rootkit technology refers to, it's a stealthing approach. Anything that stealths a process or files, or in the case of Windows, registry entries, basically, and even the appearance of the process in a list of processes, so that stuff can be loaded on your hard drive and running in the system, and no matter what you do, you can't see it.
The original audio-only version of this podcast can be found on the Gibson Research Corporation site at grc.com/securitynow. This clip illustrates some of the highlights from that show. This video clip comes from a large collection of related clips. All are indexed and easy to find at www.askmisterwizard.com, along with related items, text articles, illustrations, and forums. Please visit us today. We appreciate your support. Thank you.